Self-directed education is inherently heroic. It's always heroic because in self-directed education, because the child is choosing his or her own big goals, the child is going to be facing a lot of small and unpredictable struggles and frustrations, those and overcoming them. All those little setbacks, that's what the hero overcomes. All those little setbacks, that's what knocked the victim down. That's what the difference between the hero and the victim is, that the victim cannot face the small setbacks. The hero relishes those small setbacks. So let's talk about an example of what self-directed education looks like. And it's just a theoretical example. Imagine that a child says, I really want to learn about how to make video games. Okay? So the child maybe figures out that the big platforms are Unity and Unreal Engine. Maybe they download Unreal Engine. They start getting into it. Because they're using Unreal Engine, they realize they need to learn some basic Python scripting. So they start learning about that. And they start saying these and or things. So they have to start learning about logic, right? Now, as they get more into it, they realize they need to learn a bit more math. So they learn a bit more math. As they get into trying to make one game better than another, they realize they need to learn about storytelling, story structure. So they start reading great classics. They start understanding story structure on their own, reading books about story writing. So what do you see? You see that they're actually learning a lot of what you would learn in that, regular education, right? That externally directed education. They're learning reading, they're learning math, they're learning logic, they're learning all the things that we think people should learn as part of a classical education. But there's a fire in it, right? They're learning it on their own terms. Think about what happens at the end of the year. End of the school year, rounding after final exams, what do kids do? They either literally burn their books, their textbooks, or say things like, oh, thank God I never have to learn this stupid stuff ever again. I can forget all this stuff now. That's a failed education. That's not good education. At that point, the education is seen by the student. The student has learned that the education is valueless. And that's not surprising because the student has no choice, no say in the education. That education is anything but self-directed. That education is basically do the minimum to get an A or whatever. Then that's it. Now compare that to a student who is learning something for their own purposes. They're not going to try to forget it. They don't want to forget it. They need that education. They need that information. They need that know-how. And that's self-directed education. Now, people all say, well, how can I do this self-directed education? They know generally how to do it, but the big complaint that people have is time. Where am I going to get all the time for this? And you can make the time. You can do certain things on the evenings and weekends and, holidays. But to really do self-directed education to that level where it creates that kind of inner fire, that passion, that excitement, to that kind of self-directed education, it happens outside of school. It doesn't happen inside of school. It only happens outside of school. Now, homeschooling is scary for a lot of people. Leaving school is scary for a lot of people. And I get that. I mean, it's whenever you're going against what's expected, it's going to be kind of scary. So what I would encourage you to do is realize a couple things. First, you don't have to do it tomorrow. You don't have to do it ever. This is not a requirement by any means. The second thing is learning about a thing does not commit you to anything. And if you want to learn about self-directed education, and again, that's not signing up for anything. If you want to just learn about what it's like, what you would need to do, what actually goes into self-directed education, you can set up a free consultation with either me or Chelsea to talk about options for self-directed education. Again, that's not committing to anything. It's just learning. And if after learning about self-directed education, you realize that's not for you, that's okay. Go back to what works for you. But the key is make that decision an informed decision. Learn about both types of education and then see what type of education is right for you. You might be surprised at how self-directed education can really enhance your education and help you build the passion that you can get when you succeed on your own terms.